Welcome to the Leader More podcast. Our motive is to pass on what we've found helpful over the years through leading teams, running operations, and dealing with life's challenges. We hope you enjoy.
Dan, how are we?
You're good. How are you going?
Yeah, look, been busy.
Been busy.
Yeah. How about you?
Been busy as always.
Yeah, what have you been busy with? You don't have a job.
I'm a small business owner.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I've never stopped. Not like you guys studying,
Yeah.
the
No, look,
academics of the world.
I work. I've actually had a rough one at work this week.
Ah.
Just a little bit short-staffed, And in
Ah.
my line of work, that can be a little bit challenging.
It's a good topic. It's what we want to talk about.
Yeah,
So what do you mean short-staffed?
just like legitimately have too much work, not enough people,
Yeah, okay.
which affects the outcome of our work.
Hey, what happened to your forecasting? You obviously haven't been forecasting.
It's funny because I haven't. Something I used to do all the time.
Yeah.
I let slip by the wayside, and it was just one of those things where. And sometimes this just happens. It just springs up on you, and you get
Don't make
complacent.
excuses, mate. You've dropped the ball.
That's great.
No forecasting. So no forecasting, and now you've got a surge, and you haven't got enough people.
Yeah.
So you're putting pressure on your team. Mate.
Well, I'm the kind
leadership,
who I think the leadership's still there because I'm the kind who I don't put pressure on the team. I absorb.
So you're doing it all yourself.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
And
That's healthy.
so upsides, I look like a giga chat. Everyone looks at the production that's going on and goes, "Wow, Scott's doing this with 1-2 less people than everyone else."
How efficient. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sustainable though.
Yeah. So then the downside is that I go home and I'm losing my hair and.
Oh, that was already happening, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not like I had a hair to lose. But yeah, it is like something that I've actually thought about recently, which is, well, in my scenario, how can I then plan for this in the future? And that uptick in work, how do I make it so that in the future, in the coming weeks, I don't have to deal with that stress? And it's different from industry to industry. But I think one of the important things for me is going to be looking at background data and seeing how that works with what I need to do in terms of hiring. So is my data telling me the correct story? Are the KPIs that I'm measuring, are they accurate?
Yeah.
Because all of that is going to infer how many extra people I need, right?
Yeah. So forecasting wise, do you know, is there an accurate or is it a bit crystal ball stuff in regards to how much work is going to be coming through?
Yeah. I think with any industry, it's always a little bit crystal ball,
Stop making
right?
excuses.
But there is depending on,
you a hard time.
yeah, of course, you always do. Depending on how familiar you are with stats, you can be quite accurate in terms of how you're forecasting. In my particular workplace, it's a little bit hard because you don't really know when it's going to uptick or when it's going to fall. It's very person based. So, in that sense, what I've got to do is I've just got to kind of look at it globally and go, well, okay, what are the odds that I'm going to need someone in this scenario? And what are the odds that I won't need someone in this scenario? And just make an educated guess. And I know there are industries where it's a little bit more prescribed. So, you might be a toy store, for example, and that Christmas, Tickle Me Elmos, they go up in sale, 100%. So you're like, oh, okay, I got to get extra people on because I know that every time it's Christmas, 10 more parents come in than usual and buy a Tickle Me Elmo. It takes 5 hours to process one Tickle Me Elmo for some reason. So
well, the forecasting one is you can be really lucky and go, this is the amount of work we've got for the next week. And we've got a whole week to do it. This is how many resources we need. And that work is not going to change. So you already know. And if you're really lucky, you're going to get advance notice on that. You could know a month out that, okay, well, in 3 weeks time, that week is going to be this busy. That's a perfect scenario. But the crystal ball one, what you were referring to, that can be harder. But you're right, is I know just thinking back to past stuff is the trend from what's been happening more recently. So tracking your output and tracking exactly how much work is coming through, you can get a bit of a trend there, right? Of, okay, well, we're about 1,000 units or whatever. We're ticking along per day that we need to produce or get out or whatever it is. So, it's tracking at 1,000 for the last month. Odds are the next day it's going to be 1,000, right? So you can sort of do it that way. Or previously, 12 months ago, okay, what were we doing 12 months? And then, okay, over the course of this month, compared to the previous 12 months, we're actually performing and work-wise, we're getting work in about 10% more than what we were at the same time 12 months ago. So if I go off what we were getting 12 months ago and add 10% because that's the current increase, well, that's a way. Not perfect, but it's something.
Yeah,
right?
like I said, like depending on how many statistics books you've read, you can get it down to a real fine art, or you can just, get out the old Excel spreadsheet and just like fast and loose it, which
just
is like
having something is, I think, the
yeah,
key.
I think it works perfectly fine. But like I said earlier, having that data tell the story you need it to is essential. So if you're tracking KPIs or data in a sense that tells a story that says, hey, I need one person to achieve these two outcomes, but in real life, actually, you need two people to achieve those two outcomes. Yeah, it looks good on paper that your site or your operation is doing well and it's hitting their KPIs. But when it comes to labor planning, you're actually just hamstringing yourself because you are anticipating you need less people than you actually need.
Yeah.
And then we go down this route of, well, what does that mean? That means you have to use your current workforce to then fulfill all that extra work, which, is fine, I guess. It means overtime and things like that. And it's a good short-term strategy, I think. But you lead it down the line and you start to get burnout, people calling in sick, and you would have seen these things before.
A few horror shows going.
Yeah.
Getting back to just to, I suppose, make some more points on the forecasting side of things. And even if you're not lucky enough to have, okay, well, this is how much work you got to get done in the next week and it's exact amount and just by following the data in regards to looking at it daily, weekly, at the very least, but I would suggest daily where you're going through, okay, well, we expected we were going to get 1,000. We got 1,000. Great. Last year we did 1,000. So it's 10% up. I'm expecting 1,100. Okay. We got 1,100. So just you're analyzing the data in real time just to see. So are your estimations accurate or not? And you can get some real, I suppose, trust in just that forecasting, just based off the fact of looking at it every day and actually seeing how much you're getting through. So then probably the second point you alluded to was just around, okay, well, how quick you can get through the work. Now that probably gets us back to, referencing, and we started talking about this in, I think it was episode 3 with improving performance, about making sure that you've got some benchmarks. There's some clear expectations of how much work should be done per person, per day, per hour, and so on and so forth. So you can actually labor plan. You get a little bit of an idea of, well, how fast on average does my team take to get through 1,000 units of something? And okay, well, they get through 10 an hour. Okay, great. Over the course of the day, we know with breaks and everything like that, each person's going to get through 70. Cool. Well, I've got a mark. So I now know, because it's been proven by time and reviewing performance, that the expectation is that they're going to hit 10. So I know each day they're going to get 70. And that's been like that for years and months. And I know that the team will do that.
It's just a standard, right?
If that's not there, it makes it very hard. Like no point having a forecast, because then you get to a point of trying to assign resources to your forecast. And then you get to a point where it's like, oh, okay, it's a Monday. Half the team's hungover, the other half don't want to be there. And, everyone's got Monday-itis, and it's just like, oh shit, we're not going to be able to get through the 700 or 70 per person. That's just not going to happen.
Bit of a nightmare scenario, but imagine you're dealing with someone who has had none of this data tracked over the past few years. Their business is growing, and so they anticipate they're going to need more labor. I don't think they're doomed, though. I think you can still go back and go, well, we've been doing this many units with this many people. You can do some quick math, right? And just
100%.
go, this divided by this.
And, any most businesses will know how much, what they're sold or how busy they are. They'll be able to figure that out, at least roughly, right? For sure. So the point is, if the situation is that there's no data, there's no forecasting, we just start. Like you can go back and just check. You can just start from that day. Okay, we did 1,000 today. What are we going to do tomorrow? I'm guessing 1,000. What did we do? We did 1,000. And then you start to see some trends. Oh, Monday's high, Tuesday's low, Wednesday's high, Thursday and Friday it starts to peter off. So we've got a bit of a trend here. And that's important because then you can get a bit of an idea of what's going to happen within your team. So then, Scotty, assigning resources to your workload and your forecasted workload. You've got to have an understanding of, proven through time, of what they can produce per person. Getting to a point where you've got some clear idea of how much people can get through consistently and produce is important. If you don't have expectations and the team aren't being held accountable to that, well, you're going to get fluctuations because people, they'll do what they
whatever
feel
they're going
like
to get away with.
But,
absolutely.
Yeah, and what they feel like on that day, right? Some, whether it's like I've got high standards and I'm always going to work really well. No, regardless, some it's like most of the time I do that. Other times I don't do that as much. It depends on the personality. How much resources do you need? And it's just matching those up. I think importantly too is like making sure that, like with that example of, okay, well, we've got 70 units that we want to get through. Like you're not including breaks. You're putting in, if you've got a team of 10, odds are on a particular day, you're going to have someone off out of that 10. So having a buffer there for unplanned leave, annual leave needs to be added in there as well. So, we've got a team of 10. Great. Yeah, but Tom and Sally are off this week and old Scotty, he's crook again. It's always a Scotty. I don't know why. But now you've got a team of 7. It's like, shit, we're up against it now. The bad scenario there is that the other 7 have got to do overtime to make up for those 3. Yeah. But essentially it's because you haven't forecasted or assigned the appropriate amount of labor against that forecast.
One thing that I want to talk about is then in that scenario, right, where you've got the 7, because you're anticipating that one's going to be sick, 2 have annual leave. What if we are a little bit skewed in our forecasting and actually all 10 are there, but we've anticipated 3 to go missing. So then we have an extra 3. Now for bigger businesses who've got cash to splash, but for smaller businesses, it's sometimes make or break, like having those extra people.
It depends, and we've spoken about this too. It depends on what the goals and expectations are for a particular team or organization, right? It's like a bigger business, like they've got more to lose than anyone. So it's like you need to be as efficient as possible. You need to make sure that you are. But again, it's like how mature, I suppose, a team or an organization is and just how focused they are. They might be selling a whole heap of stuff and it's not a focus. We're selling so much, who cares? We don't need to be efficient.
Yeah. Right? And I think from a leadership perspective, that's where you kind of have to do your work, which is, you have this standard of, well, I only need 10 people today. I've got an extra 3. Well, what are you going to do about that? Yeah. What's your workforce made up of? Are they casuals? Can you send people home?
Yeah. Is there project work that can be done? And having that up your sleeve as well, for sure. Is it a situation where you can reward one of your team after half a day or a couple of them after half a day? Hey, really pleased, your monthly 101, you're exceptional. Have the rest of the day off, thank you. There's things like that can happen. But having a plan is just, again, it's just being organized and having a plan. So same with your forecasting situation. You're in a hole because you haven't done the work and done the forecasting. Same with that sort of thing. It's like, okay, well, what are the things in that scenario, if we're lucky enough that all 10 turn up on a particular day and we don't have one off crook, what are we going to do with that extra person? What are the things? Can we get ahead on tomorrow's work? How does that happen? It's just having that plan for sure.
Yeah. But I've also been in scenarios where you actually find out on the day exactly how many people you need. And it's just like, it's a bit of a weird ring around to casuals going, don't come in, which is, sucks for casual workers, but it's a part
and parcel of it. The other one too that is helpful is that, and it could be from how many resources do I need? the whole unplanned labor thing, like I've worked in different places where what we've done is that we have absorbed that. So if someone was away, if Scotty was away again for a change, we would just grab someone from another department. So we knew on Mondays and Tuesdays that particular departments were quieter. So they had extra resources. So we could grab them if we needed. Or their workload was at a point where they didn't need to get it done on that particular day. They, if needed, they had a 48-hour turnaround or a 72-hour turnaround. They can do less on that particular day. We can flood a particular area that's short and then pay them back and labor before their deadline's over.
Yeah.
So
and it's something we talked about
cross-training is
important.
important.
Cross-training, it was like a huge thing that we talked about before. And it's like, it's good for the person, not just, to upskill them and train them new skills, but in scenarios like this where, hey, we need to steal someone from another department.
Well, yeah, and it's just dumb when you think about it, is that, okay, well, we've got one part of the team where there's 10 going full tilt, flat out, even if everyone turns up, right? Let's say, for instance, your forecast is a little bit off and you want to, and you've got more work than you anticipated on that particular day. So, okay, well, what do we do? How do we flex up in that particular area? So having that scenario where you can steal from different departments, it could be, okay, we steal one from the other and we can get through that for a particular time or whatever.
Yeah,
but having a plan is important when you're trying to add resources to that forecasting, because the first scenario is okay, well, you can just get the work done. Great. The second scenario is that you can grab from other areas within normal hours to be able to complete the work. The third one is that we need to do some overtime. Now, obviously you're paying a premium for that, so that's not ideal. You don't want to make a habit of that. Yeah, it's good every now and then for your team to get some extra money and extra hours, but if you just burn them all the time and it's consistent, like that's a fallback. Then the fourth one is you're getting casuals in. Yeah. So I need to hire new people. So they're probably the four options. And obviously you want to be, trying to get through with option one. But if, 2, 3, 4 things fail, well, they're your options of being able to do that.
I like a little interesting little thing. What is your thoughts on like this idea that over time you pay a premium, right? So then people should be working towards that premium. Do you agree with that?
I just don't think it's realistic.
Yeah,
when you think
agree.
about it,
I think,
well,
it's something I've heard a lot.
When are you better after 8 hours?
Yeah.
When are you ever better?
No, I've heard like leaders who subscribe to that thought of like, hey, well, I'm paying you 1.5, you should be outputting 1.5, and it's like,
yeah, is it realistic? Like we've all been on shifts on a Saturday or a Sunday where you go in and it's a lot looser vibe, whatever. Industry. It's just people. So it's a weekend, You don't necessarily have to wear the uniform. There's a smaller
boss
crew.
wears his shorts.
Look out. But yeah, like it's a looser vibe, right? Yeah. So it is hard. But the frustration there is that when there's leaders that haven't forecasted, haven't actually had any thought or planning in regards to fail safes if they do have more work than the resources that they have, but then they start saying that, oh, you've got to be efficient in overtime. That's your fault.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you've got to look within. It's like, yeah, that's frustrating if they're not and someo's taking the piss, but in the end, you've created this situation.
Yeah, look,
particularly if it's consistently.
I couldn't disagree more. I think it's their fault. They need to work harder.
But no, it's a valid point.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another. The other one too is with casual employees, right? So the old, we've got 1,500 units today, but we've only got enough people to do 1,000. Oh shit! I've got to get labor hire on the phone. Yeah, we need 3. Send 3 over now. That's like, oh, this starts to get a little bit interesting. So you're at a point where they've never been to your workplace before. I just need a pair of hands, right? So you get someone in, they're not going to be there for the whole time because you're calling them when the shift's already started, and whether that's because some of the resources you're expected were turning up aren't turning up. So you got to call them and get someone in. They come in, they're not going to do the correct safety sort of inductions and the onboarding, depending on what it is. They're just not going to know what they're necessarily doing, whether it's an admin role, whether it's a manual role and things like that. They're not going to be as efficient, but you're paying a premium for these people.
Yeah.
Like you're paying that labor hire company to send someone through. They're not going to be as efficient as your normal team, and you're paying more for them.
Yeah.
It's just
for
like
the convenience
convenience.
of having them there and not having them there the next day.
Yeah. Instead of the scenario of, okay, we're forecasting and our forecasting is quite strong. We're working off, okay, we've got crystal ball. We don't know what we're getting in on any particular day, but we work off what we did 12 months ago, and we work off the percentage that we've been increasing over the last month on the previous year. So I've got a bit of an idea. I add some buffer in there just in case, it'd be safe to sorry, because if you've got some casual, you send them home early if you do end up getting less than what you forecast. So you'd rather have more than less, as long as you downsize your labor force before you finish the day. But you get to the point where you can have a bit of an idea of what's going on. Then you've got a situation where you get more work in than the resources that you have. Okay, well, I'm going to steal from other departments, and you can survive for, let's say, a week, right? Then you're in a better situation. I'm forecasting for 10% up on last year, but we're actually tracking at 20%. And we have been all week. I need to get some extra help in for the following week. That's where it's going. So you've got a week now to be able to engage in a labor hire company, get them to screen some people. You can actually screen them as well. So it's like, okay, you're paying a premium for these people. They're coming in on the actual day, and you're not even saying hello to them and seeing what type of people they are. You might find within an hour that they're shit and you want to get rid of them straight away. So being in a position where you can actually screen them yourselves or someone within your team to be able to do that is good. Then when they do get here, you can get them a day earlier than what you need to do some training and different things like that. So there's options there, all because you're being planned and proactive instead of just, oh shit, we've got one away today. We need someone. Yeah, get someone right now. Don't care who, get them here. And then you're paying a premium for it.
What are your thoughts then on the idea of, well, if your planning is sufficient enough, well, you can actually just avoid the labor hire side of things and just hire yourself. Obviously, there is that cost associated with hiring new people, casuals included, because you yourself have to put time going through the interview process and all the human resources required to get them on board and all that sort of stuff. So do you think that's also an option?
Yeah, but there's probably a risk there, right? Like and it depends on the environment and the workforce, right? But if you've got a whole heap of permanent team and you have a downturn and you've got all these people that are permanent, well, it's a little bit harder to disengage with them because they are permanent and you've got less work now. Whereas if you have a proportion of permanent team and casual team, well, you can just, casual, that's part of what they're doing. So it's like, hey, we don't need you this week or whatever it is, But you're right, it's like you want to be as close to perfect as possible, knowing that you can't be perfect. So you are going to have to flex up or flex down a little bit, but you want to be close to watching that sort of stuff and having some casuals there so you can flex them up, like you might have them for 3 days a week, but you know that they can work 5 days a week. So that could be an option. You may engage them for 4 hours a day and that works for them normally, but you know that they can go up to 6 or 8 depending upon what's going on. So again, it's just how can you flex up your labor force with it being planned and with it being proactive,
And doing like those like funny little tricks with, someone can work 3 days a week, someone can work 2 days a week, and plussing those two people together to make a full-time equivalent and things like that. So
like you don't want to have a heap of them because you got to deal with so many different people. But you're right, uni one and students, right, is that okay? Well, you look at a uni student, is that they go and they have time off in some peak periods, particularly over Christmas, where they'll have 3 months, 2.5 months off over Christmas period. December, January, well, probably mid-November through to, mid-February. Is that about right? Yeah, something like that. But that's a busy period for a lot of businesses. It's like you could have them for 2 days a week during the rest of the year, but you know that they can flex up to full time during that period. Like that's perfect. Like that's great. Like how many different retailers and things like that could utilize people like that because they know that at Christmas time they're going to be busy and they know that these students are going to want to earn some money because they've been studying for most of the year. So there's different scenarios and things you can tweak there, that's for sure. And having a proportion of those that you can rely on that's another good one that you can, instead of just cross-training and having people within, is adding more hours to people that you already have. Yeah.
And something that, has come to my mind is that we talk a lot about relationships and building relationships with people. Do you think this still applies for casual team members? Because this is a tough one where they might not be there for a long period of time. They might just be there for a seasonal gig, right? Is it worth then investing that relationship in them? It's a bit of a dark question to ask, but do you just, flick them off and say, hey, pick some
I'm not
stuff?
talking to you.
Yeah.
Would you do that, would you?
No, I wouldn't, because I'm always trying to maximize my friends. and if you're a staff member, you're a
on the hit
potential
list.
friend.
Jesus, get yourself into some trouble there, Scott.
No, friend.
Hey, I wasn't thinking any further than that. Are you expecting them to do the same amount of work as the normal team?
I am, absolutely.
Yeah, and you should, right? Because you're paying a premium for them. So you're paying 25% loading onto a casual on top of the normal.
Wait, I thought that was because they don't get holidays.
Hey?
I thought that was because they don't get holidays.
Well, yeah, but you're still paying for it, right? Like there is that. But, in the end, you're paying 25% on top of that. Plus, you are paying the labor hire provider for that as well. So you expect them to do the same amount of work and you're paying them more than the normal team. Well, of course you want to, maximize that. How can you maximize, people enjoying their environment, getting the best out of them and having feel like that they're a part of it? Well, you build a relationship with them. 100%.
I agree.
And it gets blurry because it can be quite difficult too. Is like, if you've got a team of casuals that work 38-hour weeks and they're guaranteed hours, just from a legality point of view, you can get into some tricky spots there because realistically they probably should be permanent. But, why can't you have a good relationship with them? Why can't you sit down with them and talk about their performance or do that with the labor company representative? Like, why can't you do that? Of course you can. If you want to get the best out of your team, and if you're paying a premium for these people, 100%.
And I think it'll just, you take the labels off casual, full-time, part-time. They're just people. And it's the same thing we talked about with relationships, is that if you have a good relationship with someone, they're more likely to work harder for you. So
well, it's not even that you want them to work harder. It's just it's the right thing to do. But that is the offshoot. That is the offshoot, Scotty. Common human decency. But no, it's a good point, because I think it does get lost. And if you're in that doom loop of, oh shit, I need someone extra. Okay, I'll call. Yeah, you need you in here. Already that person's like, oh Christ, I was expecting to have the day off and now I'm coming in and okay, cool. I'm a bit flustered. Like, they need me. I don't need them. They've called me. It's like, that's going to be an attitude in the mind. So if you're in a situation where you've got that type of environment going on and then, oh, I don't need you tomorrow, see ya. Like, you're treating them like a bit of piece of meat, really. I only need you when I want you, which is the relationship, I suppose. But there's a way to go about it. There's some byproducts of treating people in that respect that is not going to be good to getting good efficiency. That's for sure.
Yeah.
The other good one, Scotty, with, labor hire casuals is just, you get a really good opportunity to sort of try before they become a permanent part of your team.
Try before you buy is how the saying goes.
You don't buy people. It's like slavery, Scott.
I think
we've gone past that in the as well.
Halfway to making a slavery analogy. You change your mind.
Yeah. It depends on the particular options and engagement options within particular labor hire companies and providers. And not an unusual one is that they need to be employed through the labor hire company for a 12-week period. So you get a bit of an idea of, do you want to keep them or not after that 12-week period? They're trained. You get a bit of an idea. 3 months isn't a bad sort of time frame to get a bit of an understanding of what they're really going to be like. Instead of going through the process of interviews and having them in and they start and you already got them permanent, like moving someone from a labor hire casual where they've gone 3 months and then moving into a more permanent position is a good way to sort of a good segue into the team. Not only for you guys as in a business or a team, but then also too for them. They got a clear understanding of, I actually like this place, or, oh no, this isn't for me. I don't like how it works here. you've got some options, you know, and you
Yeah.
can make a more educated decision.
And I know in some industries, this actually happens quite a lot where they do work tryouts, where they actually overhire for the role. And this happens a lot in industries where having the right fit is crucial for the role. And, you know, you'll hire 4 people for a 6-month period and you'll retain the candidate who does the best. And, you know, it's kind of grim because there's a bit of competition going on there, but it is, you know.
Well, you know, from your experience where you're trying to employ bulk amount of people, right? Is that you're trying to get in, let's say, I don't know, 20 people. It's like, you need 20. Are you going to hire 20 or are you going to be hiring 23?
Yeah.
You're going to be hiring 23 because there's someone who's after the couple of weeks of the process to try and find them aren't going to turn up. But then also too is that if you're hiring a bulk amount of people, they're going to be inefficient at the start of whatever they're doing. So it's like for the first week, 2 weeks, or however detailed the work is that they're doing, you're going to need more people to be able, you're going to be inefficient anyway, depending upon how much work you got. So you do need more because you would hope after a week, their efficiency goes from, 10 to 15 or whatever it may be, right? So having more there in the case that you can.
Yeah. So you anticipate these people, hey, they're new, they're probably going to produce, 60 units instead of 70 in their first week. Let's just hire the difference so that we can.
Yeah.
And then maybe at the end of it, some people are still just not working up to it. So you can sort of.
Yeah, well, you can then make an educated decision based on their performance and how they are within the team and the group of, do we want this person here? We've probably got a few too many this week now. Who should we keep and who shouldn't we? Or who should go onto a reserves bench as such in case someone is ill or whatever it may be. You've got some options there. Again, that's just about being proactive and planned, is that I know I need 20, but I'm going to get a couple more in case. So if 2 don't turn up or don't work out, well, I've got some options there. And I don't have to go and actually rehire people.
Yeah, but you've also got to think of, well, you're getting extra people, but you're also maybe losing people on the day because, training and things like that. You've got to select resources. Hey, you have to go train that person.
Yeah.
So.
And the hard situation to be in with that is that it's all said and good. People from an operations background, let's say, we just need, this is how many people we need. No, but this is your budget and that doesn't fit in your budget. And that's an important part for people that are running operations and so forth, is that setting budgets based on the forecast. Like, if you're not doing any forecasting, how the hell are you supposed to know how much wages spend you're going to have? Well, you don't know how much work's coming in. How is this going to work? If you haven't done any forecasting, well, then your budgets, if you've got them based on that situation, but your budgets aren't going to be accurate because you don't have any forecasting.
Yeah.
So that process of linking your forecasting through to your operational budgets is important as well, is that you need to know how much work is coming in because you need to be able to budget how many people are coming through.
Yeah,
but you could be in a situation though where you want that 23 and you get told, no, it's only 20. You want to have those conversations that, when you're setting your budgets for the financial year, is that, we set the budget. It was based on a forecast. The forecast is different now. We're 10% higher, so our wages budget is going to be 10% more. Having provisions, again, about just being planned with it. Having provisions is like, okay, in November, we go from needing 10 people to 15 in December. Okay, well, that's great. We can budget for 5 more people, but you've got to budget too for the training of those people, their inefficiency over that period. So it may not be 5 people. Over the course of the month, it may actually be more like 6 or 7 that you got to have budgeted for there. So probably just to rehash that process around engaging with labor hire casuals, is that one option is that you just pick up the phone because you need someone on that day. Or the other option is that working towards a timeline of, I know because of our forecast and the amount of resources that we have, because we've got people on annual leave or whatever in a couple of weeks' time, is that I'm going to need some more people. So I can give my labor hire provider a week for them to be able to screen someone, send a resume over. We can actually interview them and get a bit of an idea of what they're like. And depending upon if you need a number of people, you can have a group interview or whether it's a one-on-one interview. Again, like, you can look at this from a negative point of view and go, I'm burning some time. Or where am I going to get this time? Well, Do you want to spend it now, or do you want to burn a lot of time and have the wrong person come in? It affects your culture. They're no good. They're not efficient. And you got to just call again and go, okay, I need someone else.
I need another one. Yeah.
Yeah, like, and just restart it. Or, yeah, I've got a week. So we can actually interview them. We can give them some online learning modules if you have that a part of it, where they can do some training so that they walk into your workplace and they know what's expected straight away. You can have some planned approach with some team members to do some one-on-one training with them on the actual particulars of the role. So there's those options. Is like option A, hey, we're busy, we need someone, send them through. I don't care who, get them here now. And then potluck what you get. Or I know I'm going to be busy in a week, I'm going to need a person. So we'll give them a week, and then we know that this person's starting on Monday. They're confirmed. We know what they're like. We're happy with them, and we're in a better spot to start. The other one too, when there's casuals that turn up, is just giving some expectations and their understanding of what's expected. So it could be that you buddy up with someone and they learn what they've got to do, but some expectations on what they should be able to get to. Okay, by the end of this week, you should be producing this amount in a day. By the end of the second week, you should be able to produce this. That buddy that goes with them, they can be having those conversations, and that can be a real good growth opportunity for a young leader or someone who's, who you feel has potential to be a leader in the future, is that you can actually give them that responsibility to be that contact for that person, both from a training point of view, but then also too, just from a performance point of view. Then in your daily labor meetings or weekly labor reviews, you can actually go through and go, okay, well, this new person has come in and they're producing here like what we expected. They're going great. Oh, second week, they're doing better than what we expected. Third week, oh, they're great. You're in the situation where you go, okay, yeah, well, we want to keep this person. Or it's like, we know someone within a week should be able to do this amount of work. All right. When they're new, it's been proven through people coming in time and time again. Well, they're doing half of that. Oh, okay. We'll give them another week and see. No, they're still at the same point. They've got to go. Like, those things are still going to happen, but at least you're tracking it and you can keep an eye on it. So, Scotty, after everything we've just spoken about, right, what are you going to change within your situation and your hole that you've got yourself into? Well, more importantly, the hole you've got your team into.
No. I think I made it clear at the beginning that my team is not suffering. I accept
at this point
the burden.
Yeah.
Of course, in the future, there is the possibility that I will crack the shits because I'm just like, oh, why do I have to do everything? And
you're going to burn out. And then you're going to get resentful at them because why are you working so hard? Don't they get the idea that
you work for me.
I'm working. Why am I doing it?
I'm supposed to be collecting the pot of gold, and you guys are supposed
to give it 2 weeks, and you'll be pointing the finger.
No, look,
which is a real scenario.
Yeah, in my situation, I think I'm just going to keep on keeping on. It'll work out.
Okay. No.
No, it'll be fine. Of course, if I do need someone, I'll just
I'll call up Labour. Give me someone now.
Yeah, it's not that easy.
No, but I think just to, I suppose in summary, is just around that forecasting side of things is really important. You just got to start somewhere. And even if you don't have some clear, defined expectations or understanding of what you're going to get through, you can still figure it out on past performance and see what's there, matching up against the resources that you have, ensuring, like we said, like we spoke about in episode 3, just around making sure that people are working towards an agreed standard is important from a performance point of view, because there's no way you can labor plan if you don't have that. And just being smart, whether it is around, cross-training, having some people that can flex up in their hours or flex down in their hours depending upon what's going on. But having something there, like if you're getting frustrated in the fact that you've always don't have enough labor or the team are always doing overtime, well, you can change that. But no, it can be a really frustrating situation to be in when you're sort of chasing your tail there. And particularly if you've walked into an environment where they've got nothing there, like that can be hard to get to a point where you're just keeping your head above the water and your team's head above the water and getting through some work. Then you've got to put all these different forecasting and, accountability metrics in place. So that's a hard grind to get to that point.
Well, yeah, look, based on all that, I will go away and I'll do some labor planning, and
Yeah.
maybe next week I'll let you know how that went.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
You should have done it before, mate. You know better. Jesus.
Yeah, look, it is what it is.
Yeah.
That's all they say.
Oh, well, good luck with it, mate. And thanks again for your time.
No
It's
worries.
always a pleasure.